The November 5th election sent a clear signal to two HISD board members up for re-election, with the state threatening to take over the board because of accusations of wrongdoing. Sergio Lira and board chair Diana Davila were soundly defeated. Danny Hernandez defeated Lira. Judith Cruz beat Davila by 64 to 36% margin. Under most circumstances, that would be cause for celebration, and it certainly was for Ms. Hernandez and Ms. Cruz. But now what? The Texas Education Agency has said it will be taking over and replacing the trustees with a board of managers. Judith Cruz is here this morning to talk about what it all means for her future as an HISD trustee and her hopes for the students of this district in the months and years ahead. Good morning. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Good morning.
What motivated you to run for this position in the first place?
So I was a classroom teacher for a long time, for a decade. I taught in HISD and DC public schools. And as a teacher, I saw a lot of inequities in our public school system. And then later, as a volunteer and as a parent in the school, that just became much more clear to me. And the acceptance of mediocrity is, I think, what even motivated me the most. Just that, you know, kids are passing, that's great, but that's not good enough. It's not good enough for my kids, and it shouldn't be good enough for anyone's kids. We need to hold them to the highest standard. I ran for the same seat 9 years ago. And after watching the board for the last decade and realizing we need folks to step up that want to do what's right for kids, especially over the last 2 years, that's what really drew me.
Okay, so now the results are in. You want to celebrate. Job well done. Congratulations and all of that.
You.
But you want a seat at the table, and now the seat's going to be taken away. How does that impact you? How do you proceed from this point as someone who is an elected trustee to the board, but who you know now that that seat is not going to be there in sometime next year?
Yes, and what I've been telling folks, no matter what happens, I will be present at the boardroom, whether it's as a voting trustee or as an elected official, you know, on the sidelines. I will be present at every board meeting, and I will ensure that the public is aware of what's going on, of what, you know, the Board of Managers is wanting to do, if that is what ends up happening. I also, I plan to apply to be on the Board of Managers.
I was going to ask you that question because I looked at it. There's nothing that precludes you from actually doing that.
Yes, and, you know, I basically applied for that position when I filed as a candidate, you know, for trustee back in February earlier this year. And, you know, by all the work I did, knocking on thousands of doors personally.
Wouldn't that be a progressive thing for the TEA to do, to take one of the people who actually was voted in by the voters to put them on the Board of Managers to kind of see what happens going forward? I
think it would absolutely be progressive. And, you know, I understand the way the law is written, that, you know, TEA's hands are kind of tied in what their options are of, you know, the sanctions that have been put into place. But I feel like it would send the message to the electorate, to the city of Houston. We hear you loud and clear, and we understand that we can still have democracy at the same time as, you know, following through with the sanctions.
What have you seen about the board and what's been going on is at high priority right now? What would you look into? That's one of the highest priorities we have as far as the HISD's board and what they do.
I would say budget priorities are probably the #1 thing. You know, student learning should be the focus of any board, you know, setting clear vision and goals and expectations for what is it that they want to accomplish together with the superintendent. But one of those things that has been really failing over just mostly the last 2 years is the budget priorities. We've cut more from the classrooms, and we should have more going directly to the classrooms, not less. Our teacher salaries, even though they got a boost that'll take place, that now is for this year, we're still lagging behind neighboring school districts, and we're not competing, right? If we want the best teachers, then we need to be up to par with at least the school districts that surround us.
What are you telling parents who are talking to you now? You had a lot of parent support, obviously, to win this position. What are you telling them about what they need to do going forward with the uncertainty of what's going on all around the HISD circumstance?
So a couple of things. The first thing I'm telling them is, you know, it's very worrisome when there's so many unknowns and you feel like, well, do I need to look for another school for my kid, or what should I be doing? The changes won't be felt at the school level. You know, this is the very highest level at the board, at the superintendent level. So I tell parents, don't worry, your principal's still going to be there, the teachers are going to be there, you're going to feel school going on. The changes, because they're policy level, they'll be felt, next school year, the school year after that. And hopefully they'll be for the better, right? If we're doing budget priorities and changing things, then you're going to be having more money and more programs at your school, more teachers. And so I tell parents not to worry. I also tell them, pay attention, right? And ask questions, be involved. And I'm there to, seek community input and to share what the Board of Trustees is doing or the Board of Managers. And so, just making sure that the public is aware, because the less information is what causes fear and confusion.
What have you been told about the timeline? How do you understand the timeline to be as far as the TEA and what it may eventually do in terms of taking over?
Yeah, my understanding of the timeline is the application for the Board of Managers is now open. The priority deadline is the beginning of December. Then there's a second deadline in January. There's a whole vetting process, of applications. Then there'll be interviews, once they narrow down the pool, then there'll be interviews, a training. So it looks like at the earliest, it would be March that a Board of Managers could be put into place. But with the legal battle going on, it could be longer.
Well, that means in January you will be sworn in as a trustee.
My understanding is yes.
Okay, so going forward then, at that point, you'll have 4 new trustees. What do you expect that the dynamic will be in that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, that's almost half of a new school board. And I think that I wouldn't even say, I used to say that when I was running, I would say the potential for shift is there. Now it will be there.
Right.
And, it's fresh minds. It's people that were not part of, the dysfunction.
Sure.
And so we absolutely can change the conversation that's been happening.
How optimistic are you about the future of HISD and the children's opportunities to succeed?
I feel optimistic. I wouldn't run if I didn't, and I'm definitely a person that believes in the highest standards for our students. We're selling students short right now of their potential. And so I feel that we can only get better. And we can do that when we have the right priorities, when we have the right superintendent and the right board working towards a common goal.
Well, I wish you all good luck. Congratulations again on winning.
Thank you.
And good luck going forward in the months ahead as you advocate on behalf of HISD and the children.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you
really
for the
appreciate
opportunity.
it.